For context, I have been with my girlfriend for over 2 years. The entire time I've known her, she has been following the diet protocols of medical medium, censoring as the followers of this lifestyle notoriously search for keywords and raid posts that speak negatively of it. You can do some research on this and draw your own conclusions. Truthfully, I don't even really have a totally negative view of the diet protocols in general. For those unaware, the general guidelines of medical medium involve no gluten, no eggs, no dairy, no soy, daily celery juice, and some other specific targeted restrictions depending on what symptoms you're experiencing. She's always told me that she has healed numerous symptoms she was experiencing surrounding Lyme disease with this lifestyle, and I really don't have any reason to doubt her. I always told her that if this lifestyle works for her, that's what's important. I personally do not follow this lifestyle and have felt no need to. I don't eat meat and have greatly reduced my intake of caffeine and alcohol over the past 2 years, most at her urging, and feel great. But I also really love the occasional pizza and Taco Bell, and really don't want to give that up. Now, this lifestyle has always put some strains on our relationship. I can't take her out to restaurants as there's nothing she can eat. She has turned down opportunities to spend the weekend at the beach because she didn't want to have to deal with packing food. When we do end up going places, we are often late as she has to pack various foods and smoothies, things like that. But we always managed to have a good time together. When I met her, she was living with roommates. Her roommates didn't follow the medical medium lifestyle, so she faced some levels of cross-contamination with their conflicting diets. At this time, we would often spend time at my place as I didn't have roommates, so the privacy was nice. As previously mentioned, I do not follow the lifestyle either, but at the time, she didn't seem overly concerned with cross-contamination. She would even use my Clorox wipes to clean things off if needed and drink water out of my Brita. We always had fun in our relationship. A little over a year into our relationship, she moved into her own place. This is when things started to take a turn. Since she was now in control of her own space, she was able to go all in on this lifestyle. This meant zero cross-contamination in her home and only using natural cleaners such as distilled white vinegar to clean her home. Okay, even at this point, still not awful. However, shortly after she moved in, she started talking more and more about us living together. This is something that I wanted, but I asked her how she felt about cross-contamination as her apartment only had one kitchen. She seemed wary, but was also adamant that we could make it work. For the time being, we decided to hold off and try to save money for a larger place. Time passes and things get progressively harder. The medical medium lifestyle is an expensive one with specialized supplements and organic food. Her grocery bill for just herself usually exceeds $900 a month. This is on top of a rather expensive monthly rent for her apartment. While she does have a good-paying job, these two factors have put her in a financial strain and created debt for herself that she has been trying to get out of. I have tried to help. I spent hours upon hours researching foods that are okay to eat with this lifestyle, things that can be bought organic versus okay to buy non-organic, and have created meals for her that fit well within the general restrictions of the medical medium lifestyle at a much budget-friendlier rate. The issue, however, is that she will often discover a new symptom she has that will require the recipe to be scrapped. For example, I created a budget-friendly rice-based meal for her based on recipes and restrictions I found on the medical medium website. I spent hours upon hours researching each ingredient, where it's cheapest to buy, what can be bought non-organically, etc. I made the meal for her, she ate it, and she really enjoyed it. Yes, I thought, this is going to help a lot with her financial troubles. Well, a few days later, she told me that she is having symptoms that relate to strep, and according to medical medium, grains such as rice feed strep, so she can't have that meal anymore. I felt utterly defeated. On top of all this, and despite her financial concerns, she talked about not going to the dentist until she can afford to go to the only medical medium-friendly dentist within 200 miles of us. I questioned this and raised concerns about the financial and health risks of not going to the dentist regularly, but she assured me she needs this. Since she moved into her own place, we went from spending a majority of our time together at my apartment to spending a majority of it at hers. I know it's because she feels more comfortable in her home as opposed to mine, so I don't mind. Recently, she came over and stayed the night at my place. Shortly after coming in, she fell silent. She sat on the couch and didn't say much. We then went to bed. At around 4 or 5 in the morning, she gets up, tells me she can't fall back asleep, and goes home. Once I wake up, I text her and ask her if everything is okay. She tells me that the environment, my apartment, gets to her and asks me to start using non-scented cleaners when cleaning my place. For me, this isn't an issue. However, I brought up how we used to spend all of our time together at my place, about how she would use my lemon-scented Clorox wipes to clean off my counter, about how she would drink from my Brita, and how all of that seemed fine, but now she can't be near scented products or drink out of anything other than a Berkey filter. She countered this by telling me that she's wanted to live this lifestyle for a long time, and she couldn't until she got her own place. She proceeded to tell me that if she is submerged in chemicals, she will literally die. At this point, I feel completely broken down. She still resents the fact that we don't live together, but I don't know how we're supposed to live together when we've gotten to the point of having two completely separate lives. I went scouring the internet for answers. The medical medium community is large enough that I figured someone would have run into this before. While searching, I found a comment that she left in response to a blog post. In this comment, she laments about how I don't follow the medical medium lifestyle, how my bouts of anxiety would go away if I just follow the medical medium protocol, how she doesn't want my pathogens in her, expresses frustration that she is going to look better than me as we get older, and she is questioning the relationship altogether. This completely floored me. I confronted her with this post and essentially asked her, is the goal to make me switch over little parts of my life until I'm completely on board with the medical medium lifestyle? She didn't deny this accusation. I am just totally broken. I've tried to be as accommodating as possible. While I didn't subscribe to the beliefs of the medical medium lifestyle or protocols, I spent hours upon hours of my life researching ways to be accommodating to her needs. She constantly expresses her displeasure with the fact that we don't live together, but in the next breath says that she can no longer stand to be in my apartment for a few hours because of all the chemicals. I've been keeping myself on a strict budget and being as frugal as possible to save up for a home for us, while she is unable to do so because of this expensive lifestyle. It's really crushing to bend over backwards for this relationship, spending countless hours researching a lifestyle I don't align with and putting away every extra dollar I have only to be met with, sorry, unless you completely switch your lifestyle around, this isn't going to work. This isn't the girl I met 2 years ago, and it's heartbreaking. We used to have such fun together. Now I have to talk her off the ledge when she tries to break up with me because I eat pizza, seriously. In my perfect world, we could go back to how things were before when we had separate diets but could still have fun together. In her perfect world, I would completely abandon my life to subscribe fully to the medical medium lifestyle. I understand relationships are all about sacrifice and compromise, but I feel like the sacrifices won't end until I'm eating nothing but raw potatoes and celery juice every day. Has anyone had experience with a partner deeply involved in the medical medium lifestyle or any deeply restrictive alternative health lifestyle? I desperately want this to work. But how do we move forward when she essentially feels as though the way I live my life is going to wind up ending the life of her? Now for an update. Apologies in advance for the length of this one. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your girlfriend is unwell, but unfortunately the disease is what she thinks is the cure. She needs to get out of the echo chamber of these spaces. She definitely has an eating disorder, and it's getting worse, not better. If I were you, I'd walk. She sounds utterly exhausting and is trying to wear you down into joining her cult and enabling her unhealthy behavior by transmitting it to you. Comment 2. While the two of you initially started out as compatible, her move into the multi-millionaire lifestyle means you are no longer on the same sheet of paper. Unless you are willing to commit 100%, it's time to reevaluate this relationship and let it go. This is what she wants. And every time you break one of the rules, it's going to create a great deal of animosity. Tell her it's time to move on. Now, for the update. It's been just over 2 days since the awkward convo about cleaning products. I decided to give her space after that. Honestly, I just wanted to stay out of her way. I spent most of the day organizing my apartment, trying to ignore the vibes. Yeah, even ignoring the vibes was a task. I mean, how do you ignore vibes in your own place? But I did my best, so she texted me about needing to talk. She wanted to meet at her place. I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't looking forward to it. When I got there, we sat on her couch, and it was super tense. I think I could have cut the tension with a butter knife. She opened with a demand for more commitment to her lifestyle. Like, seriously? I mentioned that I wanted to keep some parts of my own life too. That's when things got heated. We started going back and forth about boundaries and expectations. She accused me of not taking her seriously, claiming I was dismissive. I mean, really? I had to remind her of all the sacrifices I've made for her diet. She snapped back, saying her health was more important than my comfort. That was a low blow. I suggested that we take a break to reassess everything. She reacted strongly to that, saying that a break would signal that I didn't care enough. I mean, yeah, it sounded like a good idea to me. I left her apartment that night, frustration boiling inside me. I needed a distraction, so I went to a local bar with my brother. He could tell something was off with me. He asked about the situation, and I filled him in on everything. He suggested a family dinner the following weekend to lighten the mood. I reluctantly agreed, hoping for a change of pace. At the family dinner, everyone was laughing and sharing stories. It felt good for a moment. Then my dad asked about my relationship. The room went silent, like crickets were chirping silent. He quickly changed the subject to my brother's upcoming baby, which was a relief. Later, I overheard my parents whispering about my girlfriend. They were concerned about how she was impacting my life choices. I excused myself to the kitchen for a drink. In there, I found my sister Kate, who noticed my mood. We talked about how difficult it is when someone tries to change you. It's like, can't they just accept you for who you are? I returned to the table after that. After dinner, I decided to confront my girlfriend about our future. We met at a coffee shop, and she looked visibly anxious. I laid out my thoughts, emphasizing the need for mutual respect. She responded with a long speech about her health and her vision for our life together. Then things escalated. She threatened to end the relationship if I didn't comply with her demands. I took a deep breath and walked away. I could feel her eyes on me, stunned. The next day, I got a message from her asking to talk at her place. I went over and found her packing her stuff. She looked visibly upset. She accused me of not caring about her well-being and stormed out. After that, I contacted a local wellness group to discuss lifestyle changes for myself. I figured it was time to focus on me. I started making plans for a personal retreat. I needed some time to clear my head and get my life in order. A week later, I ran into her at the grocery store. We were both surprised to see each other. We exchanged awkward glances, and she turned to leave. I called after her, asserting that I wasn't going to change for anyone. The finality of my words hung in the air as she walked away. Thank you for reading. Edit. I want to clarify that I'm still open to healthy changes, just not the extreme ones she wanted. When I said I was looking into wellness groups, I meant ones focused on balanced lifestyles. I've been feeling lost, but realized I want to improve my habits, not completely change them. Am I the idiot for demanding answers from my wife after she left me for a mutual friend? My wife and I met as she was starting college. I was starting my sophomore year through my girlfriend at the time. Not a great relationship, which felt like it was only being kept alive out of spite. She was stunning, captivating, and my oh my did my heart flutter when we started talking. Not long after we met, the sparks started to fly too high to ignore. And, albeit a rocky road to start our relationship, many fun dates and late nights later, we were sold on each other. We moved in together about a year later and have been soaking up every ounce of fun and love we can find. It's one of the things I really love about us. The world could have been ending, but we'd be happy doing just about anything together. 6 years later, a little more than 5 living together, and 2 married, I wouldn't have wanted to spend that time with anyone else. Though we were kids when we met, and to some, we still are. With that in mind, I can admit there were some growing pains. We went from playing house and pretending to be adults to doing the real thing, and while there were ups and downs, we've both changed a lot, and in my opinion, for the better. I have done my best to give the love I would want to receive. Lunches packed with a note, a scavenger hunt, or a love letter left to be found when she gets back from work after a hard day. It's not like I buried my head in the sand and said, "This is great." I was in tune with how I thought she was doing, maybe to a fault. I acknowledge that the slightest alteration in her mood can turn me into a bloodhound, trying to figure out what's wrong or what I can do to fix it. I worked so hard to try and build the life I thought we wanted. I could go on, describing what I thought was a once-in-a-lifetime relationship, but alas, it is time to move on. To our downfall, we recently took a breathtaking trip to St. Lucia about 5 months ago. It was paradise. I had never felt more in love with her. But something really bothered me. She was texting a coworker, female, around 25 years old, far more than usual. We typically abide by the rule that our time is our time. Long story short, when we got back, she went to hang out with that coworker and spent much longer than she initially said she would. When she got home, I could tell something was up. I confronted her and she swore up and down that nothing was going on. They were just friends. I couldn't let it go, bloodhound mode and all. I told her I wanted to see their texts, which is beyond rare for us. I do my best to give her space and privacy. Her face went ghost white, and she said, "You're gonna find something." Well, I did. That coworker and she were having an emotional affair, or so she says, spicy pictures and all. This led to a lot of anguish, and she stayed with a friend for a few nights. The farce repair, or so I've dubbed it. I spent those nights crying, dying a little inside. And well, like any good 26-year-old who was drunk and surprisingly aroused, I did send some cruel texts at first. I'm not proud of it, but I was hurting pretty good. Suffice it to say, one thing led to another, and she was back home. We discussed at length what led us to this point, what we could do to fix things, and how to ensure this never happened again. She started therapy, and things stabilized to a surprisingly good point. I did my best not to hold it against her, still giving as much privacy and space to heal as I could. I thought we were heading to an even better place than before. Our communication improved, and things were looking up. I offered to go to couples counseling and do nearly anything to make this work. But, given the subreddit this is posted to, and the title, you guessed it, I'm now sitting in our house alone, with our cats and belongings, about to go on a work trip, with the world crashing down on top of me. My lungs atrophied with the last breath I took during that phone call. The callous way she said she was leaving burned into my brain. Look, I'm not perfect. I deflect pain with bad jokes and can sometimes be overbearing. But, for goodness sake, I thought we were going to go the distance. I still want to. I don't want this to end. Where do I even go from here? Do I plead and beg? Do I accept that there's nothing I can do to stop this? It's not like I'm unapproachable. She could have come to me and said anything, and I would have listened and done my best to empathize or sympathize with it. Any advice, or honestly just friendly messages, would be greatly appreciated. If you made it this far, you're a real one, and thank you for listening to my terrible storytelling and rambling. Too long, didn't read. My wife and I had a great relationship. We hit some bumps and decided to try and fix things. She threw in the towel without really coming to me first to say we were at that point, and wow, does it sting deep. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm not saying this to blame you for your wife's affair, but you sound smothering. If you come off that way in a post where you're trying to make yourself look good, nearly everybody does this. I have to imagine you might come off even more smothering in real life. I think that's something to ponder for future relationships. Future relationships, as in not this one. This one you need to let go. A secret affair, an abrupt exit, those are not the actions of someone who loves you, and if she doesn't love you, there's nothing to repair. Mourn, cry into a bowl of ice cream or a plate of nachos. do not contact her. Comment 2. Bloodhound mode. This freaks me out, to be honest. To me, it speaks of a partner who will take every tiny little gesture, every tiny little flutter of a facial expression, and doggedly cling to it until they've shaken the bones of you. And so they get you to admit that yes, you were frustrated or upset for a moment, but then your rational brain performed an override. But it never matters that you did have second thoughts because they fixate on the first thought and judge you based on it. Now for the update. 3 weeks have gone by since my wife left. The first few days were a blur. I was just trying to get through each hour without totally losing it. I didn't want to cry all the time, but I felt like if I let myself go just once, I might never stop. I focused a lot on our pets, just trying to keep our routine as normal as possible. Dogs and cats don't care about your marital issues. They just want their food and walks and cuddles. And I needed that too, just something to hold on to. A few days ago, I got this text from my wife asking if we could meet to talk. I figured the damage was already done, so I agreed. We decided to meet at this small diner we used to go to for breakfast. I had the same thing I always ordered. Not like it mattered. She arrived looking nervous. I could tell she had something heavy on her mind. We sat in a booth, and the waitress took our order without saying much. She probably knew what was going on. Everyone in our town knows your business. She took our order and went back to the kitchen while we just sat there in silence. When the food came, I was honestly just going through the motions. I pushed the food around on my plate, not really eating. So she mentioned that she wants to take some time for herself. I had a feeling that this was coming, but hearing her say it still hurt. I asked her if that meant she was still leaving, and she nodded. I think I just stared at her for a while. She said she needed to figure things out without me around. It felt like she was trying to make it easier by explaining herself, but there wasn't really a way to do that at this point. Then the conversation took a turn when she revealed she had been seeing someone else. I didn't even know what to say at first. I just asked who he was, and she mentioned a mutual friend from work. I couldn't believe it. She spoke about how they connected over shared interests. I didn't even care. I just wanted to know how long this had been going on. I asked if it was more than just emotional, and she didn't deny it. Then it got awkward. I tried to process what she was saying, but my brain just couldn't keep up. She apologized but insisted this was what she needed to do. I just sat there for a minute, looking out the window at the cars driving by. A few days later, my brother invited me to his place for a barbecue. I reluctantly accepted, trying to keep up a brave face. I knew his wife would probably ask about my wife, and I would have to explain. I just wasn't in the mood to talk about any of this. But my brother is persistent, and he wouldn't let me sit at home by myself. During the barbecue, my sister-in-law did ask about my wife, and I had to explain. She looked shocked, but I could tell she was trying to keep her mouth shut. My brother pulled me aside later, expressing concern about my situation. He mentioned he had seen my wife with the guy she mentioned at a local bar. That hit me hard. I decided to confront her again, wanting clarity on everything. This was a whole new level of messed up, and I needed to know the details. I texted her to meet me at a local bookstore where we used to hang out. When she arrived, I told her what I heard, and she seemed taken aback. She denied being with him, but then hesitated and changed the subject. I was angry, but more than that, I just wanted the truth. She finally admitted they had gone out a couple of times, but it was nothing serious. We ended the conversation with her insisting she still wanted time apart. I thought that was the end of it. A week later, I found out my wife was planning a trip with this guy. She hadn't mentioned it at all. I called her to discuss it, but she didn't pick up. I left her a message expressing my frustration and confusion. I just couldn't believe this was happening. I ended up getting a call from her later that night. She sounded distant. She told me she needed to go on this trip to clear her mind. That's the state of things. She's going on a trip with another guy, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do about it. I just want my life back, but I know that's not going to happen. To answer a few questions, my wife and I did not have children, which made the decision to separate somewhat easier. She has been living with her parents during this time. The new relationship she's pursuing started after our issues began, but before her leaving. I have been focusing on work and staying close to family. Am I the idiot for confronting my brother about selling my clothes and being told to let it go by my family? When I moved back to my dad's house after losing my house last spring, I brought the majority of my clothing with me and stored it in my room. I left everything in my room and packed one bag to travel across the country for a work opportunity in the summer. When I came home at the beginning of this year, my bedroom had clearly been picked through, and my brother told me he cleaned it for me. When I asked where all of my clothes were, he told me he'd stored them in the attic, and I had no reason not to trust him, although I couldn't understand why he would do that. I had immediately launched into another job that dominated my time and knew a lot of my stuff was still in a storage unit, so I didn't really think about it. I told myself it was either in the attic or still in storage. I cleaned out my storage unit and realized that I had actually brought most of my wardrobe back. At the same time, my brother moved out. I asked him about the stuff in the attic over text, and he told me he thought more stuff was in there than there was, and apologized. At this point, I realized he had lied. I knew he had an online thrifting business spanning across multiple platforms. I couldn't find most of his accounts, but I found one, and he was actively selling several things of mine. I could see in the history that he had been selling items quite soon after I left for my seasonal job in 2023. However, the history was only of items where the buyer had left reviews. I confronted him in person, and he doubled down and said he donated many of my items that I'd previously left behind when I was in a stage where I was moving often for school and storing things in my bedroom. He claimed he hadn't touched anything since 2022 and had no idea where any of these newer items were. It's incredibly obvious he's lying. He never admitted to selling anything online and gave me his account info for things like Depop and Etsy. I only knew his eBay account, much later in the evening. At that point, I saw he'd removed the items from eBay he was actively selling that were mine, so I'm sure he did the same for the other websites. My dad refuses to get involved, and I'll get kicked out of his house if I file a police report. What I really want is to see a history of the listings to give me peace of mind and confirm everything that was stolen so I can let it go. I also want my brother to repay me several $1,000s at least for the items. Individual pieces were worth upwards of $100 each, and I think at least 100 items have been stolen. I don't really know how to further confront my brother, since all he's done is lie, and I don't feel like I have a hand to play, since I can't threaten legal action. I'm completely shocked, because my brother essentially built his business off of selling clothes he stole from me and is facing no consequences for it. My trust is completely broken, and I feel gut-punched. He still regularly visits the family house. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You don't just have a brother problem, you have a father problem too. If I were you, I'd ask your father if he's willing to reimburse you for everything your brother stole from you. If he's not, then ask him why he thinks you shouldn't call the police. I'd love to hear his explanation. And if he tries to give you some nonsense about family, ask him why it's okay to steal thousands of dollars worth from family and to threaten to kick family out for reporting the theft. Doesn't sound like family to me. Comment 2. So you all live with Dad? Who allows theft in his home? Maybe take a few of their items, sell them, recoup your money, then leave them to their lying and thievery. Your dad is guilty if he condones it in his home. You need your own space. This home isn't safe. Your things aren't safe even under lock and key. You obviously aren't scraping by. Now for the update. 3 weeks after the last update, I went to a family barbecue at my dad's house. Yeah, I know, not exactly a fun time, especially since I hadn't spoken to my brother since our little confrontation. The vibes were definitely off. I got there early to help set up the grill and get the food ready, which was probably the only thing that kept me sane. My dad was in a good mood though. He was super excited to see everyone together for the first time in forever. Then Jake and Rachel showed up with a ton of food, including a cake to celebrate their pregnancy announcement. I had to put on my best happy face for that. My brother rolled in late, looking a bit flustered. I couldn't help but notice. As the party went on, I overheard him talking to Rachel about his thrifting business, and that made my stomach churn. He casually mentioned needing new inventory and joked about finding treasures in places. I had to bite my tongue to keep from losing it. I just wanted to enjoy my time with Kate, our younger sister, who needed help picking out clothes for an upcoming event. I offered her some of mine, realizing I still had limited options. My brother overheard this and jumped in, saying he could help her with some cool thrifted finds. That was just a low blow. I could feel my irritation boiling. Later on, I saw him rummaging through bags in the garage, and it just raised all my suspicions. After the barbecue, I went to the attic to check things out. I found a few boxes labeled with my name, but they were just random items, not the clothes I was missing. The next weekend was Father's Day, and the whole family was invited again. My brother mentioned how he had upgraded his online shop, and my dad was all proud of his son's entrepreneurial spirit. That made me uncomfortable. I pulled my dad aside to talk about what happened with the clothes, but he brushed it off like it was nothing. He said siblings fight and that it would work out in time. A week later, I saw that my brother had posted a new video showcasing his thrifting finds. I saw several of my belongings in the video, and it just made my blood boil. I messaged him, demanding he take down the video. He got all defensive, claiming he didn't steal anything and was just using what he had. I decided to document the online sales without making a scene. I needed to gather evidence first. I reached out to some old friends for support, and they were just as shocked as I was. They suggested I attend an upcoming local market where my brother was selling, so I went. I spotted his booth filled with items, including more of my clothes. I just stood back, watching as people eagerly bought stuff, and my brother waved at me like everything was just fine. I approached the booth, feeling a mix of anger and determination. I confronted him about the items, but he insisted he was just reselling. The whole thing drew attention from people around us, making it even more awkward. I left the market feeling more committed to resolving this without escalating things further. For now, I decided to keep my distance from him and focus on rebuilding my life. Edit. It's been over a month since the last update. I decided to take a break from attending family gatherings. My brother continued to sell items from the market. It became an uncomfortable topic among family and friends. I focused on work and started volunteering. It gave me a sense of purpose and helped me cope. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.